Hello, and welcome to Hellavy. I'm your host Joe, and we're continuing our Let's Read of DC's 52 with issue number 6. They continue the established tradition of jumping between plot lines every week. Last week we had the folks at the hospital, and the folks who went missing in space. This time we have more Booster Gold, some time in Haven with Doc Magnus, a little Green Lantern action, and we get to see what's going on with Black Adam and some second-string DC characters that aren't really popular enough to have their own book. Week 6, Day 1. There's a news report of a villain named Manthrax being foiled by Booster Gold. He'd apparently planned to plant a bomb on the busiest platform in the subway station, resulting in probably the deaths of thousands of Metropolis citizens. The news station got some cell phone video of the villain yelling, "Curse you, Booster Gold!" And the reason I said he'd apparently planned a bomb is because the very next panel, Manthrax is talking to Booster. Seems Booster hired Manthrax to stage the attacks, so he could just go in and stop it and look like a big hero. I ad-libbed, it's what actors do. I teach a Saturday morning improv at the Learning Annex. You should stop by. Booster responds with his trademark sassy sarcasm. Yeah, we can make brownies after and braid each other's hair. Skeets, meanwhile, gives a reporter some play-by-play for the viewers at home. Booster had to run out on an important endorsement deal with a razor company. Priorities are priorities, Skeets says. The things Booster does aren't about dollar figures. He tells her that Booster chased Manthrax down the subway tunnel and disarmed him, and that if he ever shows his mask in Metropolis again, he'll answer to Booster Gold. At that point, Booster takes the helmet for the costume that he supplied Bob or Bill or whatever his name is, and they agree that he'll take the fat sack of cash Booster paid him with and vanish into the sunset. Then we cut to China, which is made clear from the fact that the Great Wall of China is in the background, and the Great Ten are in the foreground, doing battle with John Stewart and Hal Jordan, two of Earth's Green Lanterns. They're informed that they're violating Chinese airspace. You can get ready for this sort of thing to be a regular occurrence. John isn't even sure who the heck these guys are. Hal seems to have some notion, though. Despite the fact that John's been active consistently for like 30 years now, and Hal has been either dead or a space villain for 10 of those years, Hal's got a better grasp on the state of superheroing in the world. What? Anyhow, as with any meeting of superhero groups, they fight. They fight for 6 straight pages. This might just be a short episode. Oh hey, they mentioned the Super Young team on page 8. I love those guys. They're a teenage super team from Japan that are vaguely Justice League-y. They're all sorts of fun. There's well-spoken Sonic Lightning Flash, a guy who can run fast. Not Flash levels of fast, but 500 miles per hour ain't nothing to sneeze at. There's shiny happy Aquazon, who can create constructs from water. She's sort of their Aquaman. Her father is part of another Japanese super team, Big Action Science. Crazy Shy Lolita Canary, who is a tiny woman with wings and a sonic scream that makes her the Black Canary of the group. She also dresses like a schoolgirl because Japan. Big Atomic Lantern Boy, who wears a giant green energy aperture on his chest that A, lets you see his bones, and B, fires green blasts. He's their Green Lantern, clearly. He's also got a huge crush on Aquazon, who has a crush on Sonic Lightning Flash, who is oblivious to her feelings and probably not interested. It wouldn't be a teenage super team without relationship drama, right? And finally, Most Excellent Superbat, who is so rich he can do anything. This is later shown to be true when he buys Japan. Truly, he shows us the power of money unleashed. Anyhow, 6 pages of fighting between 2 Green Lanterns and 10 Chinese superheroes. And by that I guess I mean 6 pages of fighting between them and Hal, because outside of the first 2-page spread, you don't see John for the duration of this section. Along the way, August General in Iron tells his commanders that coalition support has been approved and is on the way. We'll see what that means exactly later. One member of the Great Ten, Thundermind, asks Hal what they're doing there. Hey, there's a thought. Ask what the superheroes are doing before you start punching them. Hal tells them that they're after Evil Star, who's been moving alien weaponry on Earth. Thundermind tells him that this is China, and they'll deal with Evil Star. Hal responds as only Hal Jordan can, and punches him with a big green fist. Then we cut to Haven. Doc Magnus is visiting Professor Morrow again. I guess it has been a month after all. It seems Morrow's in a bit of trouble. They've taken his books and his research into the missing scientists. Not because I'd stumbled onto some big government cover-up. Oh no, nothing like that. It's because I converted one of the guards' iPods into a handheld sonic disintegrator ray, and somebody didn't like it. Model prisoner, right? Will recommends he tries out the book on meditation he brought him. He says it really helped him out after everything went wrong with the metal man and, quote, all that other stuff. Meanwhile, a maintenance worker is installing a camera in Morrow's cell and informs him, "We're watching you." Other men watch the Playboy channel, but you watch me. Which one of us is more punished, I wonder? The rest of the page is shot through the eye of a camera lens. Will Magnus tells Professor Morrow that he's looked into the missing scientist thing and that 15 criminal scientists have gone missing since the crisis. He, however, is trying to avoid the whole superhuman world at the moment, but he doesn't know how successful he'll be on that front now that Lex Luthor is broadcasting that he can give anyone superpowers. A fella in some darkly lit room bows to a shadowy figure and informs them that they've successfully gotten surveillance on Professor Morrow's cell in Haven. He refers to the person in the shadows as Great One, and then asks if Great One is an acceptable name. It is! The Great One then tells him to tell those monsters to study their targets well. Then we're back in China. The Great Ten are still on the Green Lantern's heels. Hal figures they could get Evil Star a little more quickly if they weren't trying to get his ship in one piece. John responds to that with a cannon and blasts the ship apart. Hal catches Evil Star with a green box, and they start to disintegrate the rubble before it can hit the ground, specifically to keep alien technology from falling into the hands of Earthlings. Hal tells John to get Evil Star out of there while he holds off the Great Ten, and then Black Adam punches Hal in the back of the head. This is what August General in Iron meant when he spoke of the Coalition. Black Adam tells the Lanterns that Kahndaq, North Korea, Myanmar, and now China have entered into a multinational coalition, that entering into Chinese airspace is now considered a violation of their Freedom of Power Treaty, and that they best be getting out of there or else he's going to rip off their hands. Then there's an explosion, and suddenly Black Adam and the Great Ten find themselves face to face with not only the two Green Lanterns, but also the Rocket Red Brigade of Russia. Well, that escalated quickly. They've come to offer the Lanterns safe passage through Russian airspace. Black Adam tells John and Hal that their coalition is only just beginning, and that he's in talks with Iran, Pakistan, Uzbekistan, and even Russia. The Rocket Reds will join us soon enough, he assures them. Your days of America using this world as your personal battleground are over. Stay in your own country and leave the rest of us alone. Hal fires back that Black Adam is representing their coalition, and if he tries anything with the Rocket Reds there, it's tantamount to an act of war. We don't want that, do we? Black Adam flies off with the Great Ten and calls it a day. Now, what I want to know is, the Green Lanterns are empowered by the Guardians of the Universe to, well, guard the universe. They do things in space. Why do they even need to cross Russia? Why can't they just fly into space? I mean, maybe a mortal man in darkness could follow them, but the rest of the Great Ten need air to breathe. Now, that would be too easy, I guess. Then it's day 2. Once again, another week that's basically all one day. Booster Gold arrives on the scene in a bunker in Arizona, the last known address of Rip Hunter. Booster thinks this security is kind of ridiculous, but Skeets reminds him there's been nearly 80 attempts to steal his time shit this year alone. Booster tries the buzzer and gets no answer. Perhaps he isn't home. Or maybe he's caught up in one of his projects. And just like that, Booster decides it's time to do some B&E. Remember, if you come up on a barrier, commit a felony. He gets Skeets to check out the lock. It's a time lock set to open on midnight, January 1st, 52 BC. I hate time travelers, says the time-traveling kettle to the time-traveling pot. Skeets figures he can ask the lock to open if he's nice enough, because he and the lock were both made by Cord Omniversal, the company of the now-dead Blue Beetle and BFF of Booster, Ted Cord. It works, but Skeets has to stay behind to keep the door open, so Booster's on his own. He descends into Rip Hunter's subterranean lair and stumbles upon a mess of research that seems fairly nonsensical. A time sphere with a broken window, a globe predicting World War III, and some papers with numbers and words on the floor. Most notably is Chase the Cop and 520 Kane Street. It seems he's been keeping an eye on Renee Montoya. Time is broken, in giant letters across the top, catches Booster's eye first. He looks at a grimy corner, the walls of which are covered in the words, "Romans go home." I mean, it's all his fault. Whose fault? Booster's fault, that's who. Finally, some recognition for Booster Gold. Then it's History of the DCU with Donna Troy and the Lochnar. After the Crisis on Infinite Earths, reality collapsed into a single timeline. Donna describes it in layman's terms, that using personal recordings to piece history together turns something cataclysmic into something trivial. The orb tells her she's wrong, because the time after the Crisis was actually a huge mess, and holds up the Justice League International as a shining example of why, as well as the Suicide Squad, Checkmate, Batman going crazy, and Booster Gold in general. They then spend a page telling us why Batman went a little nutty. Between Jason Todd being killed horrifically by the Joker, Barbara Gordon being paralyzed, also by the Joker, actually probably just the Joker in general. He's not exactly the best guy to be around for your mental health. Then in true DC fashion, Batman gets a whole page, and then everyone else in the universe gets squeezed into roughly the same space. The following things are covered in 3 sentences or less. The Dominators invade Earth. The Manhunters go to war with the Guardians. Superman is killed and replaced by 4 other dudes. Batman gets his back broken, and hey, we're back on Batman. You almost tricked me there, DC. Then Hal Jordan killed the entire Green Lantern Corps, ate the central power battery, and became a supervillain called Parallax. Kyle Rayner becomes the last Green Lantern, and then Donna leaves off with a vague message about yet another crisis to come. 0 Hour. Boy, will I ever have things to say about 0 Hour. And that's it for this issue of 52. They really ate up the middle of the issue with a giant fight between 2 groups of superheroes. How cliched can you get? This is also just after Hal Jordan came back to life and basically became the main Green Lantern. And there's no better sign of that than the fact that he and John get into a scrap, and John basically vanishes. Who cares about him? It's Hal o'clock over here. This is really a piece for the time that it came out in. Black Adam is going around uniting nations that were, and some still are, considered rogue nations. We're supposed to have a negative impression of what he's doing because he's got North Korea and Iran on board. 2/3 of the Bush-era axis of evil. I don't know if that's a clumsy metaphor, or if it's just a product of the time, because Black Adam at one point literally teamed up with Hitler, Hirohito, and Mussolini, the actual original axis of evil. There's a thing I said back in week 1, that the crisis affected more of the world than just America, and that they showed us France to drive that home. Black Adam isn't wrong. I'm sure the rest of the world would be sick of American superheroes kicking in faces when clearly these places have heroes of their own to handle those situations. Russia's got the Rocket Red Brigade, there's the Great 10, Japan is full of superheroes like Rising Sun, Sunny Sumo, and the Super Young Team. Heck, the Justice League International that Harbinger's Orb held up as an example of why that era was fucked 6 ways from Sunday was seriously international. A few of their members came from the Global Guardians, such as Brazil's Fire, Norway's Ice, France's Crimson Fox, Russia sent a Rocket Red to the crew, and Dr. Light from Japan signed up. The second Dr. Light, not the first one. I should mention that this series was not only globally representative, but also damn funny. There's an issue where Booster and Beetle steal Martian Manhunter's Oreos, and it's hilarious, trust me. These sorts of shenanigans are going on a team that's also got Batman as a member. Now Batman, he's got a reputation as being no fun, and that's kind of earned. But even this, in this environment, Batman started to have a little fun. And then shit went off the rails, as we saw earlier. The point is, it's a little telling that sovereign states exerting their authority over their own airspace is seen as a dick move, especially given the time this comic hit the shelves. I don't want to get too political here, but this is kind of a great example of the Bush Doctrine leaking into media. Hal and John refuse to work with local authorities, run in, smash some things, punch the locals in the face, and almost start a war. Anyhow, tune in next week for more 52. We got more space stuff, more Booster, a stretchy guy, some Montoya backstory, and the return of someone you certainly thought you'd seen the last of. Until then, I've been your host Joe, and thank you for watching.